Unspoken Issues.
Here we go. This was number one unanimously for us too. Okay. We both chose Savage Dragon number one by Erik Larsen. Before we get into this issue, let me just kind of set things up for you. I think that I got the first issue of the ongoing. Did not realize. I remember maybe I was going through Wizard or something where I was seeing the covers for these first three issues in this miniseries. And I was like, where are these at? I can't find these. I didn't know these came before.
So you thought the first issue of the regular series was just the first Dragon
right.
issue.
I had no idea of anything that came before the regular series. I think I might have lucked into or happened upon is the third issue the one with Megaton Man?
No, that's a one shot. That's just Savage Dragon versus Megaton Man.
Well, then I'm completely confused. I think it might have I might have the Bedrock issue, which is that the third issue?
That's the third issue, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think I have that issue, and I was trying to figure out how that fit in to and it was I remember the production of those comics, their production, the feel. What is the word I'm looking for here? Where like you got your cardstock covers, you're embossed and all that stuff, and the pages are definitely slicker.
The glossy pages.
Thank you. You don't have that in the Dragon miniseries, do you?
None of the early Image books had the glossy pages. Those didn't come in. I believe Youngblood number 4 was the first glossy page Youngblood, and I think the Dragon number 1 was the first Dragon with glossy pages of the regular series.
Okay.
I think Wildcats didn't have glossy pages until issue 5, which is when it picked back up after the miniseries, the initial miniseries was over. So yeah, it was several months in before they started doing the higher production, everything with glossy pages and everything.
Got it. Okay, so that makes sense.
They did have higher quality paper for the direct market books, because when I initially pulled out my Cyberforce issue to reread for this, I have a newsstand copy, and I immediately noticed like it was lower quality. So I dug out, I checked, and I did have another copy of Cyberforce that was a direct edition. And it's not glossy paper, but it is a higher quality paper than what like the newsstand issues have. And then eventually they switched over to the glossy pages, which is like the highest quality or whatever.
Got it. Well,
these are details that everyone needs to know, obviously.
Well, people are way better for knowing this. What you're describing led to my confusion as to why does this book feel different compared to the one I just read. Like, this is issue 3 I thought it was issue 3 of the ongoing series. Like, that's not the case. That's not what happened here So yeah, I'm getting the first issue of the ongoing, and then I start realizing that there was this miniseries that had come out. I think I tracked those down. I don't know if I got them in auctions or if I got them separately somehow. Like, we have a little Rinky, the name of the place is called Rinks, but we call it Rinky Dinks. It's a flea market. There's flea market vendors in there, and I think I found some issues there at the flea market at one time. But anyway.
The interesting thing, just for me personally, is I've read the Savage Dragon trade countless times, but there's a difference in the trade from the first 3-issue miniseries, because the first 3-issue miniseries is done nonlinear, where there are flashbacks and stuff like that. And when he put the trade, when Erik Larsen made the first Dragon trade paperback, he reshuffled the pages to make everything in chronological order.
Interesting.
And then he also added a few pages here and there, and then he added the backup or the Dragon story from Image Comics number 0 to the very end, which kind of Image number 0. It was like a 5-page story that bridged the gap between the miniseries and the regular series, and he included that in the trade. So it's kind of neat to go back and read this issue kind of in a different order. I haven't read the single issues probably in over 20 years, so it was kind of interesting to go back and reread it this way for this.
Wow.
The cover, really cool, and we get 2 taglines on the cover. First, brutal issue, and at the bottom, intense action from Erik Larsen.
Oh, is it ever? Do our listeners a favor. I mean, as if we can't just say, hey, Savage Dragon, and you guys figure it out. You have to explain to them what the Savage Dragon looks like, who this guy is.
Well, I mean, my initial response to Savage Dragon when I saw images of him, I'm pretty sure was like, this guy just is the Hulk. Like, he's just a Hulk clone, but he's got a big mohawk thing on his head because he's a big muscular, green-skinned guy. He's bald, but he's got a big like fin on the top of his head, kind of like a mohawk. He's wearing the blue jeans and like a wife beater, so you can't tell from the cover. But although Dragon is like ridiculously proportioned as far as like his shoulders and muscle mass, he's only like 6 feet tall. So he's not like a big giant guy like Bedrock, whatever.
Hulk,
or
I think Hulk.
Yeah,
Hulk pushes like 7 or 8 feet or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and I think he's listed maybe in a trading card or somewhere. I saw it listed a long time ago that Dragon is 6 feet tall, 6'6" if you include the fin. So he's not he's largely proportioned, but he's not a huge guy as far as height. So
yeah. You can picture yourself bumping into at a concert or something like that. And he's just a big dude.
This guy hits the weights a little too often.
Right. Let's go ahead. We'll get into our synopsis here. So Savage Dragon #1 hits shelves June 24th, 1992. Title of the story is called Baptism of Fire. You might recognize some names here, Chris Armstrong. Writer and artist Erik Larsen. Lettered by Chris Eliopoulos. And colored by Gregory A. Wright.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Isn't that cool?
I was aware.
That's some really cool stuff.
Very cool.
We open the book with the Savage Dragon in police uniform engaging with a couple of street villains by the name of Glowbug and Cutthroat. And boy, do those guys have a unique look. I'll stop right here and just say Savage Dragon's Rogues Gallery, which, I mean, when you say Rogues Gallery, there's probably like 1 or 2 that I can think of right off the top of my head. But, he runs afoul of so many different types of villains.
Yeah.
I remember in the ongoing series, I loved when he encountered I think it's the Shrew, which is like, wasn't that like the rat thing?
Yeah,
that was
he basically similar to like Vermin from the Spider-Man comics.
Yeah.
But basically just like a rat man,
Yeah.
That's basically
he's covered
like a
in
werewolf,
blood.
but he's a rat.
At the end of this issue, we get to see, I think, Mako.
Predates King Shark. That's
right. Note it down. So the Rogues Gallery of Savage Dragon villains is so deep and so varied. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And gets maybe a little too outrageous at times.
Let's see. There is some crazy stuff that happens later in the Dragon comics. I was collecting when God fought the devil.
Yeah.
In one of the issues. Horridus, is that the name of the?
Yeah, that's a Freak Force character.
Freak Force character that they found in the basement. Dung. Yeah. This sounds really familiar.
He's basically a fat guy with a suit that shoots. He's basically got 2 shit cannons on his arm.
I haven't even made it through the second.
That's not even the grossest one.
Who? Okay, tell me.
Oh my gosh.
No. Okay. Well,
there's
then
also a character known as Heavy Flow.
No. Yep. No. Wait.
I think you can guess where that's going.
That is disgusting. This is so.
Just look up heavy. Just Google Heavy Flow Savage Dragon.
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm doing it right now. Hold on. Heavy Flow Savage Dragon. This is why oh my gosh. The image search. What in the world? Oh, that is wrong. Again, it's another reason why I love Erik Larsen. Because it gets outrageous and he can do anything. I mentioned this.
I think he can do whatever he wants.
I mentioned this in the other podcast that I think when I was talking to Bailey about it. I didn't understand how limitless independent comics could be. Like, pull up all 7 of these issues. Look for that comics code authority. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find it anywhere. And that's what really drew me to Image Comics and made me become a fan again. So anyway, all right, let me get back to this synopsis. Here we go. I got distracted by heavy flow. Glowbug and Cutthroat, they engage in some serious fisticuffs and a lot of blood spray. Oh, yeah, a lot of blood spray with the Savage Dragon. We then look back to when the dragon, kind of like his origin, I guess we'd say, where Dragon was found naked in a burning field by Lieutenant Frank Darling. Of the Chicago police force. An amnesiac, Dragon awakes in a hospital bed, unable to answer most of Darling's questions. Later that night, as Frank is telling his wife of the day's events, the news reports how the hero Super Patriot had been hospitalized, giving Darling the idea to bring Dragon onto the force, a request that Dragon refuses. Looking to persuade him, Darling gets Dragon a job at his cousin's warehouse, but then sends some super thugs, or pays some super thugs to shake him down while the dragon is present, hoping that would motivate Dragon to join the force. However, things get out of hand when the warehouse explodes, killing Frank's cousin. Dragon agrees at that point to become a policeman, and one of his early jobs storms a hostage situation, eliminating the criminal threat with a little help from a vigilante by the name of Star. As Dragon talks to the press, some supervillains wonder what their boss's next move to protect their criminal empire will be. And that's kind of where we end it, where we got these kind of thugs just standing around. And in the background, there's this caped, hooded figure. You don't really get a good look at him. I know who he's going to be. But, you're kind of wondering what lies ahead for Savage Dragon and the Chicago police force. I'm giving you the floor, sir. I'm throwing you the mic. What are your thoughts of our favorite Image Founder book here?
First, I'm curious, is Cutthroat British? He shows up a few times in Savage Dragon, but like our first image in the Savage Dragon mythos, we have Cutthroat getting attacked from behind by Dragon, and he's just saying bloody hell. I've never heard anybody say bloody hell that's not in a British accent. So I've never thought of it before until today, but I think he might be British.
He was a pirate, probably. I'm going to go ahead and, he's a cutthroat. It's got some kind of pirate.
That's true. Yeah. I never even thought about that. Yeah. He's got the pirate eye patch.
Right, dude. I didn't either. Look at this. Revelations happening right here on this podcast. Unreal.
But yeah. Look at Cutthroat's costume. Like he's got 2 giant skulls for shoulder pads. He's got a belt and a cod piece that are skulls. He's got a bunch of knives all over him, and they've all got skulls on the hilts.
Yep.
I mean, this guy loves some skulls.
Right, dude. And I love the fact that, like, okay, Eric is drawing this character. He's like, well, I could probably fit another knife here.
Yeah.
He just keeps putting knives on this guy. Here's a knife here, knife there.
One of Cutthroat's arms, his main weapon, his arm, I guess, has been amputated at the shoulder, and he's just got a gigantic sickle, basically, at the elbow for one of his arms. So,
and this is another. I mean, it's another pirate reference, to be honest, because usually their hands are cut off, and there's a hook at the end of their hand. Well, this guy's arm is cut off, and he's just got a big, huge blade instead. So, wow, look at that. Man, we are right at the action right at the beginning of this issue. Like, I mean, we're just boom right into it. There is Savage Dragon flying at this guy, and it punches. This is what Erik Larsen wanted to do. One of the things that I'd found was where Erik had talked about doing the Punisher. And when he was drawing the Punisher, he couldn't draw. And I think I may have even mentioned this on this podcast, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But he couldn't draw like Punisher punching a guy through a wall. That's what he wanted to do.
Right.
But he was handcuffed when he was doing that book because it's not what the Punisher does. So this is his magnum opus. This is the thing that he wanted to do. We start out and there are people getting punched and thrown around. Yeah. Women are involved and women are getting punched. I mean, it's no limits, sir.
You know, when he shows up to take on Cutthroat and Glowbug, there are just dead bodies littered all around the bad guys. They've just murdered, I guess they're cops. He refers to them as pigs, so I'm assuming he means
they look like cops.
These cops, but before Dragon showed up. But I want to shout out Chris Eliopoulos.
Yeah.
For the lettering, like these sound effects are just awesome, and they really help to sell the action.
Oh, yeah.
In this fight with Cutthroat.
I don't think there's a single panel. There might be, though, like that first one, maybe, but then it is laden with the sound effects, just all over the place. I mean, he punched him so hard, he's turned himself backwards. When I hop into the ongoing series, I have no idea about this whole origin story and how it got started.
Yeah.
That there may have been kind of discussions.
So is this the first time you've read this issue?
I think so. I think this is the first time. I don't know. I feel like I've seen this fire thing, but I think it's alluded to a lot in the ongoing as well. And I think the whole Frank Darling feeling bad that his cousin got killed. And isn't there like there's a big story, like he's all worried Savage Dragons, he's worried that Dragon's going to find out about it. And
yeah, he sort of set that up. Spoilers. He sort of set his cousin up to get robbed just so Dragon would kind of see how bad things are, and that maybe that would convince him to help and join the force or whatever, which worked.
Right.
But Frank was not aware that they were going to blow the place up. So, yeah, it was kind of his fault that he got his cousin killed or whatever. But, yeah.
Right. We get our allusions to Super Patriot. Me and you talked about Super Patriot at one point on this podcast. So this is the actual
classic Super Patriot.
Yep, the classic. That's right. Classic Super Patriot who ends up he gets messed up. He doesn't get killed. Right. He gets messed up pretty bad.
The description, Frank and his wife see it on the news. They mention Super Patriot here and then Mighty Man later on another news broadcast. But like to just kind of hammer home how desperate Frank is and how badly they need Dragon, because Chicago is like full of these super freak, like super powered, a mafia style gang, but they're all super powered and the cops can't compete with them.
Right.
So the description of what happened to Mighty Man, it says he was brought into the hospital today with both arms and legs crushed beyond repair and half of his face missing. And the doctors say that if he lives, he'll never walk again. So, of course, he comes back later as a cyborg or whatever. But
yeah, Super Patriot coming back. I mean, it right there, you can see on Frank's face. He's like, what am I going to do? We need every weapon that we could possibly get. And especially if Super Patriot's having problems and he gets messed up that bad.
Right.
The two goons that show up at the freaking warehouse are weird looking.
Yeah, I love Skullface. He's I forget the name of the other guy, but Skullface is just what a great design. He's got a big like gold, body armor suit, but like his face is just like a skull with fangs, and he's got like a shock of bright red hair coming down, like long hair. And interesting fact about Skullface is that his skin and muscle are invisible. That's why he looks that way.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, like he has, a face, but it's just invisible.
You can't see it.
See straight down to the bone. Yeah.
That is crazy. I swear, like, since he was a kid, Erik's just pumping these things out. He's got this notebook full of all these characters. He's like, which one am I going to take out today? I imagine he's probably still got like 3 or 4 notebooks to go, like that he made from back then. It's just this huge, wide variety of, all these great looking villains and heroes too. I mean, Mighty Man's pretty cool. Super Patriot's a great idea for a character. We don't get a whole lot other than just the mention of him in here, but I mean, wow. But the one thing I think that sticks out to me about, Savage Dragon is like, he's this, in this book, it really puts him where he's like, I don't want to join the force. I just want to live. And then he kind of gets forced, obviously, into the position of joining so he can help battle these, these villains and give humanity a chance, or Chicago a chance. But he's always had this kind of like grim attitude about him. And I think a lot of that happens to be the fact that he can't remember who he is. He doesn't really have a whole lot of answers. Another way to kind of compare him attitude-wise for me is John McClane from Die Hard.
Yeah. He's really kind of an everyman type. Yeah.
Right, dude. And the ordinance that apparently the Chicago police has to give this man to make a hostage situation go away by walking through a wall and that's pretty funny. Star, by the way, Star has hair. Does he have hair in the ongoing? I swear he either shaves his head or
no, he does not.
Okay.
And it's interesting how that plays out. I'm trying to dance around it, even though it's spoilers. Like it's a fun storyline for people who may want to go back and read the Dragon series, which I definitely recommend.
Right.
But yeah, there's a point in a backup story in one of the early Savage Dragon ongoing issues. Star has a backup story where his hair gets caught on fire while he's fighting a bad guy.
That's great.
So yeah, later he's just got like a cap, like a regular cap over his head, like a Spider-Man type mask.
I think this is why it's easily number one for me, is because of some of the ideas that happen in this series, and some of the ideas, and granted, this is not like indicative immediately in the first issue, but just Erik Larsen as a creator and some of the ideas that he comes up with and talks about in his series is just so unique and fun.
Well, I mean, this is a solo book. It's not a team book, but we have Dragon, Mako, Hellraiser, Basher. These are the bad guys on the last page. Right. Cutthroat, Skullface, Star, the other bad guy with Skullface, whatever his name was, Mighty Man, Super Patriot. Like all those characters in the first issue. Right.
Right. And this is a great setup, too. I mean, you got this guy who doesn't remember who he is. He's going to be a career as a super cop. I don't know if they get into it a lot in this issue. I think they do. But I mean, he's a by the letter of the law type of dude. What that interaction that he has with Star. I mean, he's like, I don't know, 2 seconds from trying to arrest Star, because even though he showed up to help him, he's like, oh, yeah, hey, you're coming in with me. And Star's like, no, I was just here to help. See you later. And he's out. That happens a lot with Savage Dragon.
Yeah, Dragon has no patience for the long underwear crowd, as he would call them.
Right.
He firmly believes that if you want to fight crime, you should be a law enforcement officer, basically. Like, he thinks Youngblood are a bunch of clowns, stuff like that.
Another milestone for me, I actually did a Source Material Comics podcast on some of the Image firsts, one of which was the first of the ongoing series for Savage Dragon. Okay. Mm-hmm. I own that issue. I loved from that point forward. I was like, okay, I dig this. It's bloody. It's very similar to what we get here. It's bloody. It's action packed. Mm-hmm. Bring it on. And then issue 2 of Savage Dragon, the ongoing hits.
Oh yeah.
Oh my Lord. It's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah, that blew my mind because I was right in the sweet spot for Ninja Turtle mania.
I'm still there.
The cartoon series premiered when I was 8 years old, I think.
Yeah.
And the movie came out when I was 10 years old. So, I was all about the Ninja Turtles. And then by the time Image launched, I still liked Ninja Turtles, because I always had, but there wasn't really, I think the cartoon was over by then. And that the toys were kind of done by that point.
So the Eastman and Laird Turtles, that series, was it still going on in the 90s?
It was, but I don't know how long into the 90s, because I remember getting a copy of the Mirage Studios style Turtles book that was Richard Corbin had done an issue of.
All right.
And it was it was a lot more, it wasn't as cartoony, as the Archie version, Yeah. So it was like a real comic, basically. So that was around in the early 90s. I'm not sure how long it went, but it wasn't a book that I was seeing a lot of because, the local comic shops were kind of rare for me to get to. I mostly got my comics off of a spinner rack at Huck's, by my house. So I was getting the Ninja Turtles Archie comics, but that was it. So when they showed up, Turtles had been my thing, and then Image was my thing, and now they're coming together in a Savage Dragon issue.
This is out of the
amazing.
Blue. This is out of the blue for me, and it's the red bandana Turtles. The front cover. It isn't the cartoon, which I loved, but this is oh my gosh, this is so authentic. What is going to happen? This was something that was just off the chain for me. So anyway, again, another example of why I love the Savage Dragon. Now I collected up to probably, I think, issue, each day the number of the issues could vary for me because I'll never remember. But I know I've got issues into the 70s and 80s, but I think faithfully collected probably through issue 40, and then had to stop. So whatever issue we were at in 98, when I got married, that was pretty much my cutoff for comics for a good while. But I love this series. I love this character. It was always something that I wanted to see. And just the insanity that, and Erik Larsen could draw a lady too. I mean, we'll just put it that way. We'll put it that way.
One of the other things I wanted to point out, the conversation between Frank and Dragon when he's in the hospital bed, like when he first wakes up, Frank is kind of quizzing him, like asking him who he is. Dragon's like, I don't know. He asks him where he's from. I don't know. And like, there's a storm going on outside, and I love the lighting effects of like occasionally the panels will light up with like, lightning is brightening the room, and it gives it a really cool pace and tone. It's interesting. He asks him all these questions. Have you had how you got to this field? No. Do you know anything about your life prior to waking up in the field? No. And why is your skin green? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he asks, who's the president? George Bush. Which at the time was true.
Right. That's right. Yeah, he's good.
The expression on Frank's face, like, whoa, you got one.
Yeah, right.
A lot of the facial expressions in this exchange with this conversation are really good. And then he asks him, who played Fred Mertz? And he goes, William Frawley, which I know that.
I said, that's a deep cut, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew that because I watched Nick at Night.
Uh-huh.
Time.
Yeah.
And Erik Larsen probably knew that because he was older.
Right.
But like anybody under the age of 40, what does that mean? That's reading it now? I mean, I just thought that was an interesting, like, that's part of the trivia but Dragon knew it. But I love that scene with their conversation. And then the assault on the hostage situation. You see Dragon is shooting all these bad guys up, but he's not shooting anybody. He's just shooting the gun. It's Phantom style from the he's just knocking the guns out of their hands until one of them gets a lucky shot in and shoots him in the eye. Then he blows that guy's leg apart, basically, because he's pissed. But yeah, I love that scene. And I'll go ahead and pick my panel, which will be from that scene, which is Dragon getting shot in the eye and his shades blowing apart.
Wow. Let me pick my panel then. Okay. So Dragon laying in the field is probably one of the more iconic things that stuck with me through the series. So I'm going to go with that just because I remember that being brought up so many times, and it's a mystery. It's like, a dragon, a dragon man and fire, and what's going on? What happened? What could have possibly caused a dragon man? I mean, why does he exist? Why here? Why now? Why is this field on fire? And why is he in the center of it? What happened? So and that's a full page. So I'll take it. I'll take it. That's the way I like it.
Did you ever find out Dragon's origin?
Yes. And I don't know if I've read it. I'm trying to think if I did.
The origin was a mystery for the first 13 years, and it was revealed in the Image 10th anniversary hardcover, which is where they brought back all the founding members that were still part of Image. So I don't think Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld participated, but there was a Cyberforce story, a Shadowhawk story. I think McFarlane did a text story that had a few images with it, but not an actual comic.
Yeah.
And then there was the Dragon origin story, and it was supposed to come out in 2002. And like everything else with Image, pretty much, it was delayed by 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And I remember in the summer of, I think, 2006, I went to Florida with a buddy of mine. We took a week vacation in Florida, or maybe a 4-day vacation. And we found a comic shop up there, or down there. I knew the book had been released, but I'd never seen one because our comic shops locally did not get one. And they had it there, and I was like, holy shit, I'm going to finally learn the origin of Savage Dragon!
Yeah, baby!
So I picked it up on my vacation and finally read it there. But yeah.
Savage Dragon, dude, Erik Larsen's a worthy spot at number 1 in my opinion. 100%.
Agreed. 100%. And one last thing I wanted to point out there: the last page. There's no letters page, obviously, because it was the first issue. But there's a long, letter from Erik talking about like all the comics he drew as a kid, getting into the industry. He did some dragon. This is the first modern Savage Dragon or first modern dragon appearance, but he did appear in some indie books in the early 80s, which is one of the very few key issues I actually own because I'm not like, that's not the kind of collector I am. I just buy what
I think I know where you're going with this.
But a couple of years ago, my buddy who runs a comic shop in town, they got a copy of Megaton number 3, I think. I can't remember the issue number, but it's the issue with Dragon and Vanguard fighting on the cover.
Okay.
From the early 80s. And so I picked up the first, that's the first appearance of Dragon in a comic book or whatever, I guess. So I picked that up. That's one of the few keys I actually have. But he tells all this stuff about all the characters, he created as a kid, made his own comics as a kid. And I really related to that when I was reading this because I was that kind of kid. Me and my buddies made comics all the time, even up through high school. I was still doing it occasionally. So I felt a connection to Erik Larsen, for that reason. He kind of details Dragon's adventures from his stories that he made as a kid into the graphic fantasy stuff and Megaton stuff. And a lot of that stuff that he details in the back ends up getting adapted as he does his Image version of Savage Dragon. Like he implements a lot of that stuff from when he was a kid into the storylines of the comic as it goes. It's really cool.
And the other thing is that there's a concept here of the Dragon book, which, at the time when I'm collecting this back in 92, 93, I assume that Larsen may have had this planned out already. I don't know. But time flows in the Dragon comic like it does here, which is great. Right. What a concept.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool that it's always in real time. So,
right.
Later in the late 90s, Dragon ends up meeting another superhero that he has a relationship with. She has a daughter. That daughter is now grown up in the current. She has the daughter's a little girl.
Right.
And now in current comics, she's a grown woman. And the current Savage Dragon is actually this dragon's son, Malcolm. I haven't kept up with the current Savage Dragon stuff. I've got like a bunch of issues that I haven't read yet. I believe this dragon died at one point, and I don't know if he's come back yet or not.
I think I
assume eventually that will happen. But yeah, Malcolm Dragon has been like the star of the book for several years by this point. But yeah,
I remember that Larsen had a house fire. Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah, he mentions that in this letter at the back too. Yeah, I think a year or two before Image launched, there was I think there were a lot of fires in Oakland or wherever he lived at the time, and his house burnt down. And he lost a ton of his original art. He lost pretty much all of the comics he made as a kid and stuff like that. So
I was just going to say he just shared something on Twitter. March 23rd, 2022. He says, my house burned down in 1991. Here's some original art I lost in the fire. And yeah, he's got like 4. One is the cover of The Shadow from DC, number 8, Night of the Mummy. Oh, I mean, this is all original art that got burnt up.
Yeah.
That is rough.
Sucks.
It really does, man. Well, all right, man. We did it. We have completed all 7 issues from the founders of Image Comics. Again, we're celebrating.
What a run.
Yeah, man. We're celebrating 30 years of Image Comics. We're closing in here. 3 minutes from now, it'll be 4 hours since we started recording. And here's the thing though. Image deserves it. It deserves, Image Comics deserves praise, at least from us. We're piddly podcast people, but by golly, these 7 people came together and changed comics forever. I mean, you cannot deny that their efforts in 1992 to leave 2 of the most established comic, well, I say 2, I mean, they left 1, but they also told the second one, you're not getting us either. But, to set themselves apart from the big 2 like they did, just on name alone was amazing. Plus all of the great things that they did for creators and giving them more freedom, giving them more money, more return on their own work is just, it's phenomenal. It really is. If I could stay awake, I'd do another 4 hours on the number twos of the issues, but I don't think I'm going to be able to pull that one off.
They shook up the industry. A lot of the stuff that came after the launch of Image with Death of Superman, Batman being broken, Age of Apocalypse, a lot of that stuff, if you talk to like Rob Liefeld, for instance, that all came out of competition, trying to compete with the Image guys because they were making a lot of noise. They were selling a lot of comics. When he talked about earlier DC falling number 3 that one month that Image was number 2, they did that with 8 books.
Yeah,
that month
they
were number 2, whereas DC they were probably putting. I mean, they do 50, now. So back in the peak of the 90s, they were probably doing closer to 60 or more. So Image, topped them in sales with 8 books. So it was kind of an earthquake for the comic industry, and a lot of people point to Image as being one of the reasons the speculation boom and one of the reasons the industry collapsed a few years later. But I'm not sure you can really blame those guys for comic shops ordering too much shit.
Right.
But yeah, a big deal for me as a young comic fan to find new characters with creators that I was already a fan of and see them kind of explode. That it was huge for me. I still go back and read a lot of that stuff periodically. I had the same thing happen a year later with Ultraverse. I'm a huge Ultraverse fan. Anytime there was something new to jump onto, I was always, first in line, as long as the quality was there. And I felt like it was with this stuff, with Image, Ultraverse, and some of the other new universes and new characters from the early 90s when the comic industry was kind of exploding.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and we'll get ourselves into plugs.
I got a podcast called Small Screeners where me and my buddy AJ look at direct-to-video and made-for-TV movies. We do that once a month. Usually on the first Friday of every month, we drop a new episode. So actually doing an episode this weekend on the second Civil War, Joe Dante movie from HBO from the late 90s. Ooh. With a lot of with a pretty cool cast. So that's kind of what I got going on. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BrodyMan34.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow me at Stiznarchy on the Twitter, and feel free, absolutely, 100%, go over and check out the Unspoken Issues podcast Facebook page. You can interact with us, the contributors here to the Unspoken Issues podcast, myself, Chris Armstrong, Dean Compton. We're all over there. We got a nice little fun community just going on talking about 90s comics. Hey, we've got all sorts of fun stuff in the archive there. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Long live Image Comics. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com and the Rattleitchen Broadcasting Network, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.